The minute Shedeur Sanders stepped behind the mic, it became a clinic in how to handle media provocation. Rich EISEN highlights how questions designed to provoke about family, sabotage, and internal team politics never got the reaction they were fishing for. Instead, Sanders gave firm, focused answers that disarmed controversy without giving it fuel. EISEN praises how Sanders didn't just survive the pressure. He controlled it. That level of poise, especially for a rookie, isn't normal. It's rare, and it's exactly what the NFL undervalues.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This wasn't just a win in the press room. It was a loss for those who thought Sanders would crack under pressure. EISEN makes the case that while the media tried to generate headlines, Sanders generated confidence, not just in his responses, but in his presence. It's a quiet kind of dominance, and it forces a reckoning. What if we've all been looking at the wrong indicators for leadership? In Sanders, Cleveland might finally have the kind of player who changes everything, if they're willing to let him. The Cleveland media thought they were going to trap him. That's how this whole thing started. A rookie quarterback on a struggling team, walking into a press room full of people ready to poke, prod, and spin his every word into a headline. The Browns had been faltering. The fan base was restless. The narratives were already forming. And all Shedeur Sanders had to do was slip once. Just once. And it would have been open season. But he didn't. Not even close. Rich EISEN broke it all down piece by piece. And what he saw wasn't just impressive, it was surgical. He watched Shedeur Sanders walk into that room and calmly shut down every trap without ever raising his voice or breaking his focus. He didn't give them anything. No drama. No sound bites. No panic. And that's exactly what made it powerful. Shedeur Sanders didn't respond like a rookie. He responded like someone who understood the game beyond the field. He recognized a moment for what it was, a test, not just his football IQ or his leadership, but of his ability to navigate a league that too often eats its young quarterbacks alive with narratives, speculation, and bias. And EISEN called it what was masterful. This wasn't some media-trained script. It wasn't calculated damage control. It was maturity, the kind you either have or you don't. The kind that comes from knowing who you are, what you represent, and how quickly the media will turn leadership into attitude and composure into arrogance if it suits the story. Shedeur didn't flinch. He stayed calm, he kept it about the team, and he refused to let the conversation drift into the garbage pile of speculation, especially the one about his family. Because let's be honest, that's been the elephant in the room since day one. The last name Sanders has been used against him from the second he walked into the league. The media can't seem to resist dragging Deion Sanders into it, constantly trying to turn Shedeur's maturity into a shadow of his father's legacy. They're not interested in his reads, his leadership, or his growth. They're too busy asking if Deion is secretly calling plays from the stands. And EISEN? He had no time for it. He pointed out clearly that those rumors, the family meddling, the sabotage narratives, the maybe Coach Prime is behind the scenes pulling strings garbage, are nothing more than noise, baseless, unfair, and damaging. Because when you strip all of that away, what you're left with is a young quarterback doing everything right, and still being doubted, questioned, and picked apart for reasons that have nothing to do with football. EISEN drew a line in the sand. He didn't just defend Shedeur. He exposed the people trying to twist the story. He laid out the real issue. This kid's poise, his clarity, his refusal to take the media bait, is making everyone else look worse by comparison, especially the Browns. Because while Shedeur is out there handling the pressure, the Browns have been fumbling the bigger picture. EISEN pulled no punches. The franchise's hesitation to fully back Sanders, whether out of fear, image management, or old-school skepticism, has done nothing but slow down what could already be a transformational moment for the team. Shedeur's presence has elevated Cleveland, not in the win column, yet, but in relevance, in fan engagement, in the way people are talking about this team again. He's the reason casual fans are tuning in. He's the reason this franchise, even with a losing record, has been part of national conversations. That matters. And EISEN was the first to say it plainly. The Browns need Shedeur Sanders more than he needs him. Because this isn't just about stats. This is about tone, leadership, identity. Shedeur's calm is contagious. His professionalism stabilizes a franchise that's lived in chaos for too long. And that's why EISEN couldn't ignore the bigger truth. This is Cleveland's opportunity to finally get it right. But are they? Because while Shedeur is leading, the team still looks unsure. The coaching decisions, the lack of trust, the conservative play calling, the uncertainty over whether to fully lean into a quarterback who, by every measure, is giving them exactly what they've been looking for. This is where EISEN got blunt. He questioned the Browns' past skepticism and the second-guessing that defined the early part of Shedeur's season. The benchings, the slow rollouts, the passive support. EISEN asked the question no one wants to say out loud. Was it just because of his last name? And if it wasn't, then what was it? Because nothing about Shedeur's demeanor says problem. Nothing about his interviews suggests he's distracted. Nothing about his leadership gives reason to doubt him. He's doing the opposite of what people feared. He's ignoring the media noise and focusing entirely on his game, his team, and the responsibility that comes with being a starting quarterback in this league. And that's the part that stings. Because it's so rare to get a rookie quarterback with this kind of mental toughness, with this level of self-awareness, with this much clarity about the role he's being asked to play, not just on Sundays, but every single day. The Browns should be building around that. Instead, it feels like they're still evaluating, still waiting for the other shoe to drop, still afraid to commit fully in case it all goes wrong. But EISEN made it clear that hesitation is what's going wrong, because leadership doesn't wait. It doesn't hedge. It doesn't keep one foot on the brakes. If Cleveland wants to turn the page, this is a time to do it. Not next season. Not when the record improves. Not when public perception changes. Now, Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's already becoming a culture changer. And every game, every presser, every moment he refuses to play the media's game, he's showing just how valuable that can be. The Browns are running out of time to recognize that. If they keep waiting for a safer option, they'll miss what's happening in real time. They'll miss the chance to embrace a quarterback who's already showing he can lead. Not just in stats or speeches, but in every subtle way that actually matters when a team is trying to turn the corner. And EISEN, he's just calling it like it is. This is about trust. Not just trust in talent, but in people, in growth, in character. And if Cleveland can't see what's standing right in front of them, then the failure will be on them, not Shedeur. So if you've been watching the situation unfold and thinking, wait, why is this even a debate? You're not alone. EISEN's just the first big voice to say it with conviction. Let's see what you think. Drop your comment below. Has Shedeur done enough to earn full support? Is Cleveland making the same mistake they've made before? Give us a like if you think the media needs to focus more on the football and less on manufactured drama. And hit subscribe. Because if there's one thing we can guarantee, it's that the NFL's chaos machine isn't slowing down anytime soon. And we'll be right here breaking down every messy, ridiculous, and revealing moment along the way. Here's the uncomfortable truth EISEN didn't shy away from. Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right, and the Cleveland Browns still can't seem to figure out how to support him without hesitation, disclaimers, or side eyes. That's not just a failure of judgment. It's a failure of leadership, and it's one the franchise can't afford to keep making. Because here's what's really happening. A rookie quarterback walks into a fractured team, the kind of team that's lived in dysfunction for years. A carousel of quarterbacks, inconsistent coaching, shaky trust from front office. It's a well-documented mess. Then this rookie steps in. He's composed, professional, steady. He doesn't just survive under pressure. He functions. While everything around him wavers, he's consistent. And instead of being embraced, he's scrutinized. Why? That's the question Rich EISEN kept circling back to. Why is a young quarterback who displays maturity, focus, and restraint, traits that are supposedly so valued, still being treated like a question mark? The answer, whether Cleveland wants to admit it or not, has a lot to do with perception. And that perception is being shaped by factors that have nothing to do with football. Let's be honest. If Shedeur Sanders didn't have that last name, if his father wasn't one of the most recognizable personalities in sports, the narrative around him would probably be completely different. He'd be labeled a rising star, a calming presence, the future of the franchise. But because he's Deion Sanders' son, the story gets polluted. People look for drama where there is none. They look for favoritism where there's only merit. They look for controversy where there's only professionalism. And that's where the Cleveland media has failed, by focusing on the wrong things. Eisen exposed how these press sessions haven't really been about football. They've been about setting traps, stirring up headlines, pushing narratives, trying to manufacture division between Shedeur and the coaching staff, or Shedeur and his father, or Shedeur and the team. But he never gives them what they want. He doesn't play into it. He doesn't deflect blame. He doesn't spiral. He stays level, focused, respectful. You'd think that would end the story right there, but it doesn't, because the media isn't looking for grace. They're looking for chaos. And when they don't get it, they twist the grace into something suspicious. It's absurd, and Eisen called it out. The way Shedeur handles these interviews, calmly, carefully, with strategic awareness, should be enough proof that he understands the spotlight, that he respects the position, that he knows what it means to lead both on and off the field. But instead of being praised across the board for that, he gets interrogated. And even more frustrating, the Browns haven't stepped in to back him publicly. Not decisively. Not loudly. Eisen's breakdown made it obvious. Shedeur is doing more for Browns than the Browns are doing for him. He's improving their visibility, their relevance, their national interest. He's pulling in attention in a way no one else on that roster has managed to do in years. Even with a losing record, people are talking about Cleveland. People are watching, and it's because of him. So why the hesitation? Why is the coaching staff still treating this like a trial run? Why does the front office still sound like they're evaluating instead of building? Why does every compliment come with a but? Eisen pointed to the root problem. Cleveland doesn't know how to lead from the top down. And in the absence of that leadership, Shedeur has been forced to lead from the middle. And he's doing it. The team isn't falling apart. The locker room isn't imploding. The media chaos hasn't turned into an actual internal meltdown. That's not luck. That's leadership. And it's being ignored. Because for whatever reason, bias, discomfort, fear, or plain old Cleveland fatigue, the franchise is still treating this moment like a question instead of the answer. And Rich Eisen, as only he can, said what so many people have been thinking. What more does Shedeur Sanders need to do to prove he's the guy? If poise under pressure isn't enough, if media maturity isn't enough, if leadership without ego isn't enough, if boosting fan engagement in a losing season isn't enough, then what are we even doing? What's the bar? Because it feels like Shedeur is being held to a standard that no one else is. A moving target based on perception, not performance. And the longer that continues, the more it becomes clear that the issue isn't Shedeur, it's Cleveland. It's an organization that can't quite figure out how to support talent without overthinking it. Eisen wasn't just analyzing a press conference. He was diagnosing a systemic problem. A franchise that doesn't trust its own judgment. A coaching staff that fears commitment. A media market that cares more about controversy than development. And in the middle of it all, a quarterback who hasn't blinked. That's why this story matters. Because it's about more than football. It's about what happens when a young leader refuses to break, even when every system around him is expecting him to. It's about what happens when talent collides with narrative, when maturity is misread as manipulation, when confidence is seen as threat instead of strength. Eisen said it best. Shedeur Sanders is doing the job of 5 people right now. He's quarterbacking. He's leading. He's managing the press. He's protecting the locker room. He's correcting the record. And he's doing it without complaint, without theatrics, without asking for credit. That's what's so wild. He doesn't need the hype. He's just asking for a fair shot. But if Cleveland keeps hesitating, if they keep tiptoeing around the idea of backing him, eventually that patience will run out. Eisen hinted at it. Shedeur may be composed, but he's not blind. He knows when he's being questioned unfairly. He knows when the support isn't real. And if the Browns don't figure out how to course correct, someone else will gladly build around the leadership they refuse to recognize. And then it's deja vu all over again for Cleveland. Another what-if moment. Another quarterback they couldn't figure out how to support. Another failure chalked up to bad fit, when the truth is, it was a lack of trust. So now the clock's ticking, not on Shedeur's ability, not on his growth, on Cleveland's ability to keep up with the player they have. Because EISEN made one thing crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't going anywhere. He's not shrinking. He's not stumbling. He's not falling into the traps that people have laid for him since day one. He's rising. And the only question left is whether the Browns will rise with him or get left behind again. And here's what's even more frustrating. If Shedeur Sanders weren't handling all of this so well, this conversation would have been completely different. If he cracked under pressure, if he'd snapped back a reporter, if he deflected blame or said one thing that could be remotely spun into arrogance, the narrative would have written itself. Overhyped, entitled, not ready for the league. And those headlines would have flown faster than the Browns changing quarterbacks in the middle of a losing streak. But because he didn't crack, because he kept it clean, professional, and centered around his team, the narrative didn't have an obvious angle. So what did the media do? They started digging deeper. Is he being too careful? Is he hiding something? Is his father pulling strings behind the scenes? It's nonsense. And Rich Eisen called it for what it is, a media machine that cannot handle maturity from a young player, especially one who defies the boxes they built. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't fit into any of them. He's not loud, but he's not passive. He's not defensive, but he's not submissive. He's not flashy, but he still carries a name with weight. And that last part is where things get messy. Because whether people admit it or not, that Sanders last name comes with expectations that don't apply to anyone else. Some people expected Deion Sanders' son to be brash. Others assumed he'd be immature. Some flat out believed he only got his opportunity because of connections. And when he turned out to be composed, prepared, and grounded, that didn't lead to praise. It led to suspicion. That's the trap Shedeur has been walking through since day one. When you're young, confident, and capable, the NFL system doesn't always know what to do with you. And the media, even less so. Eisen's breakdown wasn't just a compliment. It was a much-needed correction. He took the spotlight off the noise and redirected it toward what should have been the focus all along. Leadership. Because that's what Shedeur has been displaying from the beginning. Not just potential, not just raw talent, but actual leadership. The kind that doesn't need to shout. The kind that doesn't rely on highlight reels. The kind that steps up in front of microphones when everything is burning down and says, "We'll get better. I'll be better." That's what a franchise quarterback looks like. And still, Cleveland hesitates. They hesitate, while Shedeur carries the weight of a team with a losing record and the pressure of media looking for anything controversial to pounce on. They hesitate, while fans start to rally around a guy who's giving them a reason to stay invested. They hesitate while Rich Eisen and others point out on national platforms that the Browns might be staring directly at their future and blinking. And you have to wonder, how many more signs do they need? Because Eisen broke it down clearly. Shedeur is not just dealing with a normal rookie load. He's dealing with legacy scrutiny, with organizational doubt, with public pressure, with whispers about his last name and his father and the what-ifs and what-abouts that nobody else is expected to carry. And still he's thriving. He's answering tough questions with clarity. He's showing up every week with professionalism. He's refusing to get dragged into drama. And he's doing it with a level of grace that's forcing even his critics to admit he's not the problem. But here's the kicker. He could be the problem if he were less mature, if he were even slightly more reactive, if he leaned into the media drama or clapped back at the coaching staff, or even gave the impression that he was checking out emotionally. But he doesn't, and Eisen highlighted that. He reminded us that Shedeur's ability to shut down chaos isn't just impressive, it's rare. Because most rookies come in and make mistakes, both on and off the field. It's expected. It's part of the process. But Shedeur's ahead of the curve, and instead of celebrating that, the Browns are still treating him like a risk. Why? Is it because of the name? Is it because he doesn't fit the mold? Is it because they don't know how to handle a player who shows this much leadership this early? Whatever the reason, the longer they hesitate, the more obvious it becomes. Shedeur is doing all the heavy lifting, and the franchise is still deciding whether to meet him halfway. That's what Eisen was pushing them on. He wasn't hyping Shedeur for the sake of drama. He was holding Cleveland accountable for the way they've dragged their feet, mishandled the optics, and allowed outdated skepticism to shape their decisions. And now, the pressure isn't on Shedeur anymore. It's on the Browns. They've got a quarterback who's stabilizing their image, even with a rocky record, who's giving them a national story that isn't embarrassing, who's earning respect from seasoned analysts, not because he's perfect, but because he's prepared. And they still haven't gone all in. But the league is watching. Other teams are watching. Other fan bases are watching. And if the Browns don't figure out how to fully support Shedeur before the tide turns, they're going to be right back where they started. Another franchise that missed its moment because it couldn't see past its own history. This is about more than development. This is about culture. And Shedeur Sanders is offering Cleveland something more valuable than numbers on a stat sheet. He's offering a new tone. No chaos. No theatrics. Just stability. Leadership. Accountability. The exact things this team has been starving for. So why is it still up for debate? Eisen didn't have the answer. But he had a warning. Don't fumble this. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the media to flip the narrative for you. Don't let this be another chapter in a book full of misfires. Because here's what's going to happen. If Cleveland doesn't commit to Shedeur, someone else will. And when that happens, and when he thrives, and when the Browns are once again searching for a quarterback, while Sanders is steady somewhere else, you'll hear all the excuses again. We just weren't ready. He needed a different system. It just wasn't the right time. And it'll all be nonsense, because the time is now, and Shedeur Sanders is already ready. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are the Browns finally ready to back their guy, or are we watching history repeat itself? Hit the like button if you're tired of the same tired narratives being recycled by the media, and share this if you think it's time Cleveland wakes up and sees what they've got. And if you want more stories that cut through the spin and spotlight the moments that matter, subscribe. Because this isn't just about football. It's about who gets believed, who gets doubted, and who changes the game anyway.